So, what exactly is the Wheel of Emotions? So, it's a tool that I was introduced to that is helping me to navigate my inner landscape of emotions. And sometimes emotions for me feel like a moving target. And that's why I'm so drawn to this wheel of emotion. As an artist, I see emotions like colors. They blend, they shift, they layer, just like on a painter's wheel. Some are bright, some are shadowed, but they're all part of the same spectrum. The wheel helps me to understand, express, and navigate my emotional world, not to control it, but to be more present with it. Like in art, both light and shadow have a role. In this presentation, I'll share ways to use the wheel in your own life, not as a formula, but as a practice, one that allows you to feel more deeply and move more freely. This journey isn't about being perfect, it's about being real, loosening the grip, softening your hold, and letting emotions move through you, not define you. I've stood at the center of this wheel, my arms open, my heart vulnerable, not to be overwhelmed by emotions, but to be held by them. When I listen, even to the messy feelings, they guide me home. Now, it hasn't always been this way, and it's still an ongoing practice for me. But this is where we begin, not with answers, but with permission to feel, to ask, to stay curious. So let's ride this wave together. Emotions serve as invitations rather than commands, offering insights rather than demanding obedience. It's important to notice emotions and ask what they are revealing, such as avoided needs or truths. Instead of reacting or suppressing emotions, we can engage with them, recognizing their energy. So for me, by acknowledging and welcoming emotions, I've gained clarity, compassion, and the ability to choose my response. Embracing emotions as they move through me helps me access their wisdom. So this is the tool that we're going to be using, the emotion wheel, and it's a visual tool, and it centers on six core emotions that aids in self-awareness by expanding into the secondary and the outer emotions. It promotes emotional clarity for me by naming emotions to create awareness, recognizing specific feelings for better understanding. There are many ways to use the wheel, starting with the core and emotions and exploring outward or working from the outer edge inward. So, just a note that the key emotions are, in this context, universal and instinctive. The secondary emotions add a layer of nuance. The outer layer of emotions reflects more of a personal narrative. This tool has helped me foster connection, authenticity, and curiosity, as well as exploration of my own internal landscaping. You might notice here that love is not listed as a core emotion. I believe this is because self love, or love of self, means making space to feel it all. Emotions often arise in layers, overlapping, shifting, and sometimes seeming to contradict each other. It's possible to feel strong and uncertain in the same moment, to feel both peace and grief, to hold anger alongside hope. This complexity isn't a problem, it's part of being human. The emotion wheel is a tool for seeing this emotional movement more clearly, not to label it as right or wrong, not to resolve it, but to witness it. Sometimes the tension between emotions can be an opening, a chance to pause, to listen more closely, and to make room for all that's present, even when it seems to pull in different directions. Emotions don't always arrive one at a time. Yeah, they can move together, overlapping, shifting, oftentimes contradicting each other. There's power and fear, peace and sadness, anger with hope. These can all exist in the same moment. The emotion wheel is here to support the awareness of that movement, not to fix it. It's to simplify it or sort it into boxes. The space between emotions can offer something valuable, not a solution, but an opening, a chance to slow down, to notice more fully, and to create space for what's present, even if it feels like opposite truths. When one emotion is suppressed in favor of another, something is often left unseen. The tendency to over identify with one experience while minimizing another can create imbalance. So, bringing awareness to both allows for a fuller picture to emerge. The emotion wheel makes space for this. It makes space for this kind of awareness because it offers a way to observe emotional polarity without needing resolution, honoring the movement and the dynamic of the emotions, and making room for layered experiences like joy within grief, courage within fear, or softness within anger. There's no need to choose sides between the feelings. Both or many can belong. So there are 6 core emotions that I will be working with in this process: happy, sad, anger, fear, disgust, and surprise. These aren't good or bad, they're foundational. Each one carries insight about needs, values, and what's going on in my internal world. They help me tune into what matters and where I might need care, protection, or change. So let's take a closer look at each one, both what it offers and how it might possibly pull us off course. Each emotion holds wisdom, and each has a default pattern, often shaped by past experience or survival instincts. The work isn't to follow these emotional scripts blindly, it's to notice the pull and pause long enough to ask, what else might be true? What is this emotion inviting me to remember? So when I notice both the message and the seduction, I create space, and the space is where choice begins. Happy helps me recognize when something feels good, aligned, or safe. But it can also say, don't question this, just smile and keep going. Sometimes it's a performance to avoid discomfort or to meet expectations. Sad shows me what mattered, what may need to be honored or let go of. But it also whispers, stay small, no one will get it. It can turn inward and keep me isolated or even silent. Angry signals that something crossed a line or needs to change. Its pull can be say it louder, make them feel it. It pushes me to react rather than to reflect. Fear points to risk, vulnerability, or uncertainty. And it's a call for caution or courage. But it often insists that I'm not ready or to turn back. It can convince me to shrink, to stall, or to avoid. Disgust helps me discern what feels wrong, off, or out of alignment. It's a signal to protect my integrity, but its voice can be sharp. That's not you. Get away from it. It can cause me to recoil, to shut down, and even disconnect, not just from others, but from parts of myself. But what if disgust isn't just rejection, but a boundary asking to be honored, a guide toward what no longer fits and what I'm ready to release? Surprise disrupts the expected and invites curiosity or alertness, but it can also urge pause or jump. It can leave me frozen or impulsive. When emotion merges with identity, space narrows. Instead of recognizing an emotion as present, it becomes the whole experience. Anger, fear, sadness, any of them can move from something being felt to something being lived through completely. And when that happens, the capacity to choose a response may become less available. The emotion can influence thought, behavior, and the direction of attention. By bringing awareness to the emotion, simply noticing it creates space, not to change it, but to be in relationship with it. From that space, more becomes possible. When the emotion hooks an old narrative, wow, yeah, core emotions have memory. They echo past pain, unmet needs, or unresolved wounds. So instead of responding to what's real right now, the reacting is connected to something that already happened. The emotion becomes a portal into a loop, not a doorway to clarity. When one emotion is suppressed or another is performed, something true may be left unacknowledged. Some emotions tend to be more accepted than others. Grief might be covered by a smile. Fear might be hidden behind control. Even when emotion is not expressed outwardly, it can continue to shape perception, behavior, and internal experience. What remains unfelt doesn't disappear. It often moves beneath the surface, guiding from the ground. And when emotion is not named or met directly, alignment can become distorted. It may look like everything is fine, but something essential remains unseen. Some emotions carry protective energy: fear, anger, disgust. They can create distance, tension, even urgency. When the pace quickens and the response is immediate, what's underneath may not have space to be noticed. A need might be present, but covered. Connection might be possible, but paused. And that protective response, what's tender may go unseen. What's vulnerable may remain unspoken. When there's room to slow down, the emotion can be met without needing to defend against it. And sometimes what seemed like protection is revealed as a deeper invitation. When there isn't a clear way to navigate emotion, it can all start to blur. Without a structure for reflection, distinct emotional experiences may be labeled on broad terms: stress, anxiety, sadness. And in that space, important differences can be missed. Each emotion carries its own message, its own tone, its own texture, its own request. When language is limited, access to that message becomes less clear. And when the emotion can't be named, it can become harder to meet with clarity, care, or choice. So, one of the ways to use this wheel is through mirror mapping. And it uses these 6 core emotions and moves and includes all the secondary as well as the shadow layer to explore emotional opposites. But here we're just going to use the core emotions as an example. But know that you can do it with every emotion listed on the wheel. Each emotion has a counterpart directly across from it on the emotion wheel, acting as a mirror, not a contradiction. These pairs invite us to see what's beneath the surface, offering insight, not solutions. They help us move from reaction to reflection. Mirror mapping encourages questions like, what am I feeling right now? What might be living on the other side of that feeling? Is one part of me speaking louder while another stays quiet? So, mirror mapping isn't about fixing emotions, it's about expanding awareness, allowing two truths to exist even if they feel opposite. So, anger protects, happy opens. Anger often appears when something important isn't working, while happy emerges when things feel safe and aligned. And we might cover anger with a smile or express anger when happy feels out of reach. Surprise disrupts, disgust rejects. Surprise pulls us into the unknown, disgust pulls us away from what feels wrong. They both respond to boundary shifts. One opens while one closes. Fear looks forward, sadness looks back. Fear says, what if it happens? While sadness says, it already did. We may fear what we haven't grieved or grieve because fear leaves us stuck. Not all emotions move in clear opposition, though. Some walk side by side, some trade places, some overlap so closely we can't tell which one is speaking. But here we don't choose sides. We notice, we listen, and we ask. What happens when I let both emotions speak? What is each one trying to show me? What truth becomes clearer when I stop trying to feel one thing at a time? So just let these pairings be an invitation not to sort your feelings into categories, but to understand them as layered, alive, and worth your attention. Fear and anger. So fear contracts while anger expands. One hides to stay safe, the other rises to defend. Many express anger when they're actually scared or suppress anger out of fear of conflict or even rejection. Sadness pulls inward and anger pushes out. Grief can turn into blame, and unexpressed sadness often simmers as frustration. These two are often tangled in the body. Surprise and fear are both activating. One jolts us open and the other urges us to close. Surprise disrupts the familiar, and if we're not grounded, it can be mistaken for danger. Fear often rushes in when surprise overwhelms the nervous system. Unexpected happiness or joy can be thrilling or destabilizing, while surprise can unlock awe, wonder, and delight, but only if happiness feels safe enough to land. For some, joy is harder to hold than pain. Disgust and anger both say no. Disgust often shows up quietly with a feeling of repulsion or rejection, while anger takes direct action. Disgust may withdraw, anger confronts, but together they set strong boundaries, sometimes harshly and sometimes necessarily. So, looking at the mirror emotions as masks, for most of my life, sadness was my default. I cried when I was angry. I cried when I was afraid. Even joy sometimes came out as tears. The lines blurred not because I didn't feel, but because I didn't know how to name what was underneath. A smile to keep the peace, even when something inside whispered, "This isn't okay." The smile became armor not from joy, but from frustration that hasn't found its voice. Sometimes staying upbeat to avoid the weight of grief, sadness feels too heavy. So it was easier to push it down, wear the lightness like a mask, but underneath, the ache awaited me. Holding back happiness out of loyalty to my pain, as if joy might betray what I've survived. Anger stepped in to guard a tender heart, a snap instead of a cry, raise the voice instead of admitting to pain. But underneath, there was sorrow asking to be seen. Fear showed up to protect was protect what's already broken. It's not just about what might happen, it's about what already did. Sometimes sadness is easier than fear. It's familiar, it's quieter, but under the ache is often a panic. What if I'm not okay today? Shrinking instead of speaking, stay silent when boundaries are crossed, but that silence often hides anger, waiting to say, that was not okay. Disgust keeps things distant, but beneath the recoil, there is often fear of closeness, of being changed, of what it might awaken in me. How about acting surprised when there is actually disappointment? Whew. It hurt less to pretend I didn't see it coming, or staying positive to avoid unraveling. But sometimes the smile was stretched really thin, a cover for the fear of falling apart. The wheel of emotion highlights secondary emotions that express the tone of core emotions through body language, voice, thoughts, energy, presence, and tone. Presence. Tone reveals how safe it feels to express emotions, and it can indicate whether they are protective or suppressed. Each secondary emotion reflects a core emotion with its unique tone, which can shift even within the same core emotion. For example, anger can manifest as frustration, tight and urgent, or hurt, quiet and sharp. Recognizing tone provides cues about underlying feelings and experiences, helping me respond with greater awareness, compassion, and choice. By noticing tone, I'm better able to understand the story the emotions are trying to tell me. So, how do we recognize tone? So, tone is the texture of an emotion, the way it moves through the body, the voice, the breath, the posture, and the energy field. It's the quality of the emotion, not just the category. Two people might both feel anger, but one expresses it as sharp and explosive, while the other goes quiet, flat, or withdrawn. Same core emotion, but very different tone. The tone reveals how the emotion is being held. Is it raw? Is it suppressed? Tightly managed? Is it protective? Defensive? Open? Or curious? Recognizing tone invites a different kind of listening, one that includes what's felt beneath the words. Tone can often be recognized by paying attention to the voice. Is it tight, raised, flat, shaky, rushed, soft, clipped, sarcastic, tense, or pleading? Facial expressions. Is there tension in the jaw, the eyes, or the mouth? Is the face animated or frozen? And in the posture, is the body collapsing, bracing, leaning forward, pulling back, or puffing up? Breath. Is it shallow? Is it held, quickened, deepened, uneven, or barely there? In the energy, does the space feel tense, heavy, charged, numb, or distant? Through patterns, thought patterns, are the thoughts looping, defensive, solution focused, blaming, dismissive, or tender? Tone and emotional safety. Tone often points to how safe it feels, consciously or unconsciously, to express the underlying emotion. Frustration might feel urgent and pressurized, a sign something wants to move but doesn't know how. While disappointment might feel quiet and heavy, a sign of something that mattered not landing how it was hoped. Boy, that's a familiar one. Pride might feel expansive or performative, depending on whether it's being owned or protected. When we notice tone, we don't assume, we listen with the body, with awareness, and with care. So, tone is a tool for emotional clarity. Each secondary emotion is a reflection of a core emotion, but the tone gives us access to the story behind it. Is the sadness gentle or collapsing? Is the fear soft and cautious, or is it loud and sharp? Is this joy relaxed and open, or high and tense? The tone tells us how the emotion is living in the body, and that's often where the deeper truth lies. Each secondary emotion has a voice, and they say many, many different things. So, happy might say, in a joyful sense, I feel light and alive, or powerful. I know what I bring. Sad, guilt might say, I may have hurt someone, whereas heartbroken says, I've lost something I loved. With anger, threatened might say, I don't feel safe with this, while distant, I'm pulling away. In fear, insecure might say, am I enough? Helpless says, I can't fix this. Disgust might say, and repulsed, I want to get away, or embarrassed, I wish I could disappear. Surprise, confused might say, this doesn't make sense to me, where stunned says, I need a moment, and curious says, I want to know more. The outer layer of the emotion wheel helps people say what they're actually feeling, not just angry, but resentful, furious, or embarrassed, not just sad, but ashamed, abandoned, or remorseful. This is where the speech specificity, the specific speech can bring clarity, really knowing what you want to say and having words for it. And this is where healing can begin. So we also find tone here, but at this level, tone is deeply influenced by past experiences, identity, and relationship dynamics. It tells us not just what we're feeling, but how we've learned to carry it. This outer layer of emotions often shows up in disguise. Someone might say they feel powerful when they're actually provocative or dismissive, or say they're frustrated when they're really devastated or powerless. So these tertiary emotions have a shadowed side and an empowered side. And this is where the emotion gets personal. It carries our stories, our patterns, our protective instincts, not just what we feel, but how we learned to feel. The shadow expression is how the emotion shows up when it's unintegrated. It's survival mode. It might look like overreaction, withdrawal, judgment, or self betrayal. For me, it often showed up as bravado, not because we're broken, but because we're bracing. The empowered expression is that same emotion, but met with awareness. It's felt fully, expressed cleanly, and it's rooted in truth, and there's ease in the body. It doesn't abandon your boundaries or silence your needs. It holds both the message and the moment. Many people stop at simply saying, I feel angry, but this could actually indicate feelings of frustration, hurt, or being critical. Without clarity, we may react from our shadow self rather than responding with awareness. So, by identifying these outer layer, tertiary, or shadow emotions, we gain a better understanding of what we are genuinely feeling, what that emotion aims to protect, and locate the shadow versus the empowered dynamic, how it's playing out, what we might require to move forward. Do you know what it means to feed your emotions versus feel your emotions? Well, for me, feeding emotions feels like a loop. I go round and round, stuck in the story. I replay what happened, what could happen, what I felt, and what it might mean. And it just keeps spinning. It can also look like imagining the worst, feeling fear, not calming it, self pity, staying in the heaviness without reaching for support or clarity, blaming, focusing on what others did and avoiding what I need, seeking validation in ways that keep me stuck, needing reassurance that never quite lands, avoiding using distraction like screens or busyness to escape instead of feel. Feeding doesn't make the emotion go away, it keeps us in it louder, longer, and usually more disconnected. Emotions are meant to move, but sometimes we get caught in them. That's the difference between feeling and feeding. Feeling emotions means you're present. You name the emotion without judgment. You stay curious. You sit with it. You allow it to move. Feeding means you're reacting on autopilot. You spiral in the story or avoid what's underneath. When we feed emotions, we often slide into old patterns, like roles in the drama triangle. And the victim, this always happens to me. The rescuer, I'll fix it for everyone else. Or the persecutor, it's their fault and I'm done. And we don't just play these roles with others, we do it internally too. The emotion wheel helps interrupt the cycle. It gives us language, awareness, and choice. And for me, I can respond instead of react when I have this awareness. So, how do we shift from feeding to feeling? And sometimes it starts with a simple pause, a whisper of presence that says, I feel this. I see this. I don't need to fix it right now. That small permission begins the shift. Not pressure, not performance, just space, just breath. It's not about changing how you feel, it's about giving the feeling room to move and giving you room to come home. The shift might look like, instead of replaying the story, asking, what am I actually feeling right now? Instead of reacting from urgency, creating space between the emotion and the action. We remember that I am not the emotion, I'm the one witnessing it. We stop managing it like a problem and start meeting it like a messenger, with breath, with curiosity, with kindness. So, what helps for me is to name it, even if it's messy and even if it changes. I stay with it just a few breaths longer than I normally would. And then I get curious. What is this feeling asking for? Not to fix, but to understand. I feel it in my body. Where does it live? How does it move? And I let that noticing be enough, because I don't need a breakthrough. I don't need to make sense of it all. Sometimes healing begins in the moment that I stop feeding the story and I start feeling what's true.